Ah, they thought they had it all figured out, didn't they? The ones who, with a grin sharp enough to split the world in half, whispered sweet promises into the ears of the unsuspecting. The ones who danced in the shadows of their own lies, because lies, after all, are deliciously seductive, aren't they? So sweet that you almost forget they rot from the inside out. It's funny, really, the way they think they can get away with it. They think they can betray, tear down trust like it's paper, rip it to shreds and toss it into the wind. They think no one will notice, no one will care. They think they can burn bridges and dance on the ashes, like nothing matters. Oh, how wrong they are. See, betrayal isn't a silent act. It's not just the words you speak or the knife you drive into someone's back. No. It's a ripple, the calm before the storm, that one moment of stillness when you know you've crossed a line, but you convince yourself it's worth it. You've heard it before, haven't you? Trust is a fragile thing, but they've treated it like it's cheap, disposable, something that can be picked up, used, discarded, and replaced at whim. But they forget, dear friend, trust isn't like that. It's not a thing to be used or discarded. It's an essence, delicate and powerful, like glass. Once shattered, it doesn't matter how hard they try to glue it back together, those jagged edges will always remain, cutting deeper with every attempt. But they don't understand that, do they? Because to them, betrayal isn't a consequence, it's a means to an end. A way to climb higher, to feel better, to win, to control. Control, that delicious little word that plays at the back of their mind, whispering sweet things to their ego. It's all part of the plan. They're just playing the game, aren't they? The system, the rules, they're all bendable. A little backstabbing here, a little manipulation there, a whisper, a nod, a turn of the head. They won't even see it coming. But they never stop to think. What happens when the walls close in? What happens when the world catches up with them? When the lies stop being useful and the truth has a way of crawling out from beneath the cracks in their carefully built facade? Oh, I see it now. They don't think that far ahead. They're blinded by the rush, by the momentary thrill of watching someone else falter. They revel in it. And who can blame them? It feels good, doesn't it? The power of watching someone sink, of seeing them beg for help that they can't hear. But there's one thing they've overlooked. It's not the people they betray who suffer the most. No. It's themselves. Because betrayal, it's a boomerang. It always comes back. It doesn't matter how clever they are, how far they think they've run. They will face the consequences. And when it comes, oh, it'll feel like the weight of the world. The very foundation of everything they've built will tremble beneath them, and they won't know which way is up anymore. That comfortable mask they've been wearing, the one they've used to hide their true self, will crack. That's when they will see it, their own reflection, twisted and deformed by the choices they made. The power they thought they held, gone. The control, lost in the wind, like the trust they once shattered. And what's left behind? Despair. That's what happens when they sow betrayal. Despair. A cold, biting thing that wraps itself around them, crushing everything inside. It drags them down, deeper and deeper, until there's no escaping. They thought they could outrun the truth, didn't they? Thought they could hide behind their lies, their manipulations. But truth, truth always finds its way to the surface. Always. And when it does, it will swallow them whole. There's no amount of money, no amount of success, no amount of power that can shield them from the consequences of their own betrayal. All of it will crumble. Everything they built on a foundation of lies will collapse like a house of cards. And they'll be left standing there, in the ruins, wondering how it all came to this. But here's the thing, the cruel thing that life loves to do to those who think they can bend it to their will. The despair doesn't just come. It waits. It watches. It's patient. It doesn't rush. No, it lets them think they've escaped. It lets them think they've gotten away with it. But when the time is right, when the weight of the world has finally caught up with them, that's when it strikes. And when it does, it doesn't just hurt. No, it devours. They'll feel the weight of every wrong move, every broken promise, every time they stabbed someone in the back and called it necessary. And they'll know, deep down, they'll know, they brought it all on themselves. They sowed the seeds of betrayal. And now, it's time to reap. But that's not the worst part, no. The worst part is when they realize, in that hollow pit inside them, that they've betrayed not just others, they've betrayed themselves. They've traded their soul for a temporary high, a false sense of power. They thought they could control the game, but what they didn't see, what they never saw, was that the game was controlling them all along. Every lie they told, every shred of someone's trust they tore apart, it all led here. To this moment, when they stare into the abyss, and the abyss stares back, cold and unyielding. It's too late to fix it, too late to undo the damage. The ripples of their actions have spread too far, and now they're all coming for them. They wanted power. They wanted control. They wanted to win at all costs. But power, true power, doesn't come from betrayal. It comes from understanding the consequences of your actions. It comes from seeing the world not as something to manipulate, but as something to respect. But they never learned that, did they? So, here they are, in the dark, alone with their choices. And when the walls finally come crashing down, when everything they've built is torn apart by the weight of their own betrayal, there will be no one to blame but themselves, no one to point the finger at, no one to hide behind. It'll be just them, alone in the wreckage of their own life. And when the dust settles, when the smoke clears, that's when the truth will hit them hardest. That's when they'll realize they never really won at all. The funny thing about lies and betrayal, about the world they thought they could bend to their will, is that it doesn't end the way they think. No, it doesn't deliver an immediate payoff. It doesn't give them that sense of satisfaction, that rush of victory that they imagined would come from ripping someone's world apart. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It drains them. Every moment spent in that chaos, every shred of decency they throw away, feels like it takes a piece of them with it. At first, they don't feel it. At first, the lies dance in their mind like a symphony. The world is theirs for the taking. But that's just the setup. That's the bait. Because eventually, everything, every last thing, starts to unravel. They think the pain will come immediately, that the guilt will hit the moment the deed is done, but it doesn't. The human mind is a beautiful thing, isn't it? It tricks you. It convinces you that you've gotten away with it, that the lie is just another part of the game. But here's the thing. Every lie they tell, every betrayal they commit, it's like digging a hole. And they can keep digging, can't they? They can bury the truth, bury their conscience deep enough to make them forget. But the deeper they dig, the harder it becomes to climb out. And trust me, when they've dug that hole too deep, there's no escape. The real price of betrayal isn't paid immediately. No, it's paid in silence, in that strange, suffocating quiet that settles over everything they touch. It's the moment when they start noticing the cracks. They know those little things that used to go unnoticed, the people they used to trust, the ones who saw them for who they truly were. They're gone. One by one, they slip away. And suddenly, they're alone, completely alone. That's the first sign, the first little taste of what's to come. They've lost their allies, their supporters, the people who once believed in them because they saw something in them. They trusted them. And that's the worst betrayal of all. Not the one they've inflicted on others, but the one they've inflicted on themselves. They've betrayed their own humanity, their own integrity. And now, there's nothing left, no one left. Just them, staring into a void, wondering what happened to the world that once made sense. But don't think it's over. Oh no, it's only just begun. The real punishment for betrayal, it's the slow, painful unraveling of everything they built. It's not the big dramatic moments, not the explosive fallout or the screaming arguments. No, no, no. It's the quiet destruction that happens when no one's watching. It's the steady erosion of everything that once felt secure. They look at their life, their empire, their carefully constructed world, and they see that nothing is stable anymore. It's all crumbling, slowly, piece by piece. And in those moments of silence, when there's no one left to blame, no one left to point the finger at, they start to feel it, the despair. It's not like the panic they might expect. It's more like a weight pressing down on their chest, a heaviness that makes it hard to breathe. It's the realization that everything they did, every choice they made, was for nothing. It's the sinking feeling that all those little betrayals, the ones that seemed so insignificant at the time, have come home to roost. Here's the kicker. The real cruel irony of betrayal, they can't undo it. They can't rewind the clock. They can't unburn those bridges. And even if they try to build them again, they'll never be the same. They might plaster a smile on their faces, wear a mask of confidence, and tell themselves that everything is fine. But deep down, they know it's not. They know the damage is done. The scars are there, hidden just beneath the surface, and no amount of charm, no amount of power can change that. But even then, the worst part hasn't hit yet. Not by a long shot, because the worst part of betrayal is the emptiness it leaves behind. It's not the destruction of relationships, not the loss of trust, not the collapse of their world. Those things, in the end, don't matter as much as you think. They're external, material. What really hurts, the part that leaves them hollow inside, is the loss of themselves. That's what betrayal robs them of. It doesn't just rob them of the people they've hurt or the world they've built. It robs them of their very essence, the person they were before they decided to manipulate, lie, and deceive. It all fades away. And when it's gone, they'll feel it in every fiber of their being. They might try to fill that void with power, with wealth, with accolades, but those things are hollow. They don't fill the emptiness. They only make it worse, because they're just distractions. They could have everything in the world, money, fame, influence, and it wouldn't mean a thing. They'd still be left with that void, that nagging emptiness that follows them wherever they go. It's like a shadow that never leaves. And they know why it never leaves? Because it's the shadow of their own betrayal. It's the consequence of their own actions. They can't run from it. They can't hide from it. It's a part of them now, woven into their soul. And it won't let them forget. The despair? Oh, it's a patient thing. It doesn't rush, it lingers. It digs in deep. And when they think they've outrun it, when they think you're safe, it creeps up from behind and takes them by surprise. It drags them down into the very pit of themselves, where there's no escape. That's what betrayal does to them. It doesn't just destroy others, it destroys them. They thought they could manipulate the world, bend it to their will. But in the end, it's the world that bends them. They're left alone with the wreckage of their own soul, wondering how they got here. But here's the thing. They always come back for their pound of flesh. The lies, the manipulation, the deceit. They don't just disappear. They have a way of returning, of taking their toll. And when they come to them, they'll take everything. They'll take their peace, their joy, their sanity. They'll strip away everything they thought they had until all that's left is despair. They thought they could betray, lie, and deceive without consequence. Thought they could play their game, and when it was over, walk away untouched. Foolish. Because betrayal isn't a weapon they can wield without it eventually turning back on them. It's like a mirror, reflecting back everything they've done, but in the ugliest, most unforgiving way. And when they look into that mirror, they'll see not just their reflection, but the truth of what they've become. Broken, lost, hollowed out by their own choices. They weren't just tearing down others. No, they were slowly but surely destroying themselves in the process. The web they wove, thinking it would catch others in their lies, was really just a snare they set for their own downfall. They took others' trust, ripped it apart, discarded it like it was nothing. But trust, once broken, has a way of turning into something much darker. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't evaporate. No, it festers. It grows into a poison that taints everything it touches. And that's what they'll face. Not the victory they thought they'd earned, but the hollow echo of their own betrayal. They sowed lies, deceit, manipulation. But in the end, that's all they'll have left. A life filled with whispers of their own actions. A life consumed by the ghosts of the people they hurt. And the worst part? They'll never escape it. They can never outrun the shadow they cast. The guilt, it will weigh on them. It will sit on their chest like a 1,000-pound stone, pressing down until they can't breathe. They'll try to push it away, to bury it, to hide from it. But the more they run, the closer it gets. It's always there, lurking, just out of sight, but never far enough to forget. They'll hear it in the silence, in the empty spaces between their thoughts, the quiet reminder of what they did, and the slow, torturous realization that they have no one left to blame but themselves. They might think they've won. They might think they've gotten away with it. But victory, real victory, is built on something much more lasting than manipulation. It's built on trust, on integrity, on the ability to look someone in the eye and know you've done right by them. And they've destroyed all of that. They've burned those bridges, and now they're standing alone in the ashes, wondering how they got here. And the worst part? The worst part is that they'll have no one to turn to, no one to support them, no one to help them when the walls close in, when the consequences come crashing down. Because the people they betrayed, they moved on, they learned, they healed. And the ones who didn't heal, the ones who still carry the scars of their betrayal, they'll never forget. The ones left behind will become the very thing that haunts them. The very people they once believed they could break are the ones who will be standing when it's all over. They'll stand tall, not as victims, but as survivors. Survivors of the betrayal they never deserved. And in their eyes, they will see the cost of every choice they made, the toll of their own actions. As for the betrayers, well, they'll have no choice but to face the consequences of their twisted game, because there's no escaping the despair that follows. No matter how far they run, no matter how high they climb, they will be met with a relentless reminder of their betrayal. And it won't come in the form of vengeance or anger, but in the emptiness, the painful, gnawing emptiness that comes when they realize they've lost everything that ever mattered, everything they took for granted, everything they thought they could replace. The trust, the love, the respect, gone, all gone. They'll wonder why no one is there, wonder why the world feels colder than it ever has before. But deep down, they'll know. They'll know that they've made their bed, and now they have to lie in it. And when they finally face the truth, that they are the architects of their own misery, only then will the weight of it hit them. But by then, it will be too late. They'll have already reaped what they sowed. The price will be paid. The game, the manipulations, the betrayals, everything they thought they had under control will come crashing down. And in that final, devastating moment, they'll realize that the worst betrayal was never the one they inflicted on others. It was the one they inflicted on themselves. Because in the end, no one escapes the consequences of their actions. Not really. So, let them sit with their choices. Let them drown in the weight of their own regrets. Let them try to outrun it, because they can't. They'll never escape the truth. They will never escape the despair they've sown. They'll watch as everything they built, everything they believed in, falls apart piece by piece, until there's nothing left but the ruins of their own decisions. And maybe, just maybe, in that final moment, when everything has crumbled and they stand alone, they'll finally understand. They'll understand that the real cost of betrayal isn't just the loss of others. It's the loss of themselves. It's the hollow, empty shell of a person who once thought they could get away with it all. But now, there's nothing left but the despair they've earned. The final lesson? Betrayal never goes unpunished. What they sowed in betrayal, they'll reap in despair. And the harvest? It's never sweet.